Welcome back, artists. In this video, I'm going to paint this lilac bouquet. My girlfriend Stephanie picked this. This picture was taken in our family's farmhouse. My grandmother planted the lilac bush when the house was built, about 1950. And I really like the composition of this. So it's really nice and simple, very easy, nice straightforward composition. However, I think I will edit it a little bit. And let me say first that I really like painting from black and white photos like I have here, because it gives me a chance to establish and understand where the values are in the painting. As you can tell, the open window is my source of light. I've got the shadows cast here going off to the lower right, and shadows throughout the flowers, most importantly, a little bit down on the stems too. I really like that. That helps make my composition easy. I will edit it a little bit as I think through this is a cabinet here, the chest of drawers that are in the room, but I think I might change it like this so that the whole bottom part of the piece looks like more like a table. Because I think the way this is laid out this way, it just drops off the painting, and I risk having a painting that looks like it could be cut away here on the left-hand side, which I don't want. So I think I'll just do a table here, and that'll have the bottom of my piece. Okay, well, I like that. In thinking it through, that's always important. So let's get on with the sketching. I'll set the drawing aside. It's off camera, but I can see it. And I'll just do a little simple sketching with my pencil. It's an old former jam jar that I had some jam in, and then Stephanie went out and picked some up lilacs that were blooming on the tree. And the lilacs come down over here about like this, kind of like so, and down over on this end, left-hand side. There's a stem that comes out here about like this, drops coming up. There's one coming up like this, flopped over a little bit. Lilacs are fun to paint, but they can be a little bit of a challenge because there's so many multitude of little blooms within the larger total cluster of blooms that grow on the bush. So I want to fill it out a little bit here and get my basic design. There I'll do my table like I said I would. The corner of the table will be behind it. Got a few stems here. Well, there we go. I know that's very light and probably not coming through so well, but I will go over it with the ink pen just now. Okay. So I like the composition. I take a quick look back at the reference photograph. Left, off to the right, standing up in the middle. That's what I've got there. Off to the left, off to the right. A little bit of build out in the middle. Nice simple glass jar. And a few stems in it, sitting on my table. Okay, take a double check. Yes, that looks like what I want to do. All right, now I'm going to go over it in ink. In this case, this is a Zebra blue ink pen, fountain pen. And when you're using ink pens, it's important that you know the most critical thing is that whether your ink, this particular ink, is water soluble. And as long as you know that, then you can plan ahead. I like it. I think it's kind of adds an interesting touch to the piece. But I just have to be aware that when I come back in with my wet watercolor paints, this is going to run with my paints a little bit, but that's fine. I like that. Makes it more interesting. Rim on the edge of the jar right at the bottom. Now I'm not going to worry too much about each individual flower. I'm just going to catch the larger overall shape. And then I'll probably use some watercolor tricks like splattering and pushing the brush and a few artistic tricks of the trade to help me make my lilacs look a little more realistic and not just a lifeless glob of paint. So I'll put a few bit of some of the dark areas are at. Okay, come down here a bit like this. Piece sticking up here like this in the photo. And this top piece comes up here and flops over. Another piece flopping over the other direction at the very top. A little bit of a stem showing through here, stem over here, and my table. Now I paint in a fast and loose manner, which is what I like. And a lot of times I'll make decisions as I go along the way when I'm in the painting process. But this initial sketching and then line drawing gives me my reference points so that I don't go too far afield. And there's more shadows here. There's a shadow coming across here. Just a few items that I want to preserve in the painting. Okay, we've got blooms, lilac blooms all over the place. Okay, all I need is just the reference points, and that sketch will work for what I want to do. Okay, I'll make a comparison again with the reference photograph. There it is. Off to the left, off to the left, off to the right, standing up in the middle. All right, I like that. Now, at this, very often, let me say that again. I'm going to come through and use my watercolor graphite, which is this material right here. It's wonderful stuff. I like to use it as an intermediate step so that it helps me establish the values of my painting. And frees me up and lets me have fun at the very end with color, and lets me I find it more expressive and fun, makes the painting process fun. But I want to grab my dark areas on my painting. Got dark areas in here scattered around. I've got all these multitude of little highlighted areas where the lilac blooms are poking through and you can see them in the source of light. So with that in mind, I'll again set the reference photo off the edge of the paper and now come back in. This is just a 3/4 inch flat brush. Now I'm pushing the brush a lot, intentionally so. I have Arches rough paper, 140 pound. This is an 8x10 in my watercolor my watercolor journal. And instead of this synthetic nylon brush, I'll use my natural hair Ron Ransom small hake brush because the natural bristles should flare out a little better. Yes, I like that better. And when doing this, I'm watching my outside edges and I want that natural jumbled messy look, because all these little blooms that make up lilacs are just these collections of little blooms, a whole lot of little blooms that join together to make the big bloom. And with a natural hair bristle brush like this that will fan out easily like that on the end, that's ideal for an application like this. Now I want to grab my darks, but I want to be mindful of the light areas that would also be intermittently throughout the various bouquets here. The stems here just end on with the end of my brush here. Okay, comparing now again the work piece I just did with the reference photograph. Tried to capture some of these miscellaneous dark areas that are around within the lilacs, keeping things open. I think that'll work. Let's now have fun with color. Lilacs are obviously a lilac color, the purple. Normally in watercolors we start with lights and work towards our darks. So I'll mix up a purple. This is cobalt blue, which is a beautiful medium blue. And then I'll add some red. This is crimson. All right, I mixed it all there in the palette. A lot of times I'll mix it on the paper. Now using the same techniques as before, I'm actually going to dry my brush just a teeny bit and splay it out. And again, I want to be mindful of those outside edges like that. Push the brush a little bit. I will just do this all around the painting. The outside edges are what define shapes. And I don't want rounded edges per se. I want these sort of jagged, blooming edges. And it's fine if it goes off the page there. So I'll do a little bit of that mixing on the paper, which makes this painting process so enjoyable. I'll lay down some color, and then before it dries, I'll drop in another color. And then, since it still has some wetness to it, the two colors will mingle together in a natural, organic manner, and just keeps the painting really interesting. I realize that maybe I flooded it a little bit there. That happens. It's really easy to have happen on you. Don't panic. Just let it dry. Leave it alone. Let it dry. Okay. All right, so what I think I'll do is a little bit of this scraping technique. I'll use my fingernail. I can use the back of my synthetic brush too. I have to scrape through while the paint is still wet. As you can see, that looks a little lilac, so I'll come through and touch them up, round them off a little bit. Okay, now while that's drying, I'm going to touch this with my glass down here. Try a little different blue, another cerulean blue, a little bit of cobalt blue. I'll play with these two blues. Okay, let's get my jar vase done pretty well. Now the complement of purple is yellow. I'll just go ahead and put in, the nice thing about complementary colors is that when you put them adjacent to one another, next to one another, they make each other stronger. So I will do that. This is raw sienna. I'll just block in some color there. That's raw sienna. This is quinacridone burnt orange. Do my shadows here. I'll touch it on the stems a little bit just so I can have an accent color from down here up into the painting. Just a hint. Now, since I'm trying to do glass, you might see the table through the water. Now I'm going to put in a little bit of context, fill out our piece a little bit. Okay, we'll retouch a little bit with some darker blue. A few areas that I had some of that watercolor graphite. Be careful with this because I can easily overwork it. I'm at the risk of doing that already. That's still very, very wet. I'll let this piece dry for a little bit, and then we'll add a few final touches. Okay, the painting is mostly dry now. I can check that with the back of my hand, and it's not cool to the touch. That means it's mostly dry. It is dry if it's totally room temperature. I'm going to do some splattering, and basically all you do is just, like I have here, load up your brush full of paint, and then I'll try to control it a little bit and literally just fling it onto the paper like so. It is a bit random, obviously, as you can tell. Again, keep my brush loaded. Try to fling it off the brush onto the paper. Mix up a little more paint and give it a go again. Spread it around a little bit. This was a little bit. I removed that splatter glob. Okay, I'm fiddling around a little bit. I did some splattering and a little bit more background work up here. I don't want to overdo it. Best just to leave it alone. I'm going to let this dry, and then I'll sign it, and we'll post it online with our friends. It is a bit messy, I admit that, but it has its own certain style, and a lot of people like it, some don't, but that's fine. It's an artistic statement. I enjoy it, I think it's fun, and it makes the painting process fun and unique. Thank you so much, everyone. Please give me a thumbs up, please subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one. Thank you. Bye-bye.